Happy New Year. It's Locked On Twins, and we're going to go back into our bag of tricks for some more free agents that you forgot the Twins signed. Let's get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE and follow me over on the skeets at warren.bsky.social. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets at Answer Dave elsewhere. What up?
Brandon, I'm interested to hear who's on this list of Twins that we forgot about, because I'd like to forget about this offseason so far for the Twins because no one's been added. So let's do the opposite and remember people that we just would like to forget about. How's that?
Yeah, if there were a biblical reference to this year's offseason, Exodus would probably be it, as so far the Twins have only had exits via free agency. They did have Caleb Thielbar sign a big league deal with the Cubs. We mentioned that in our most recent episode talking about our Hall of Fame ballots. Make sure you go out and go out of your way to check that one out, because that one is a whole heap of fun. But again, thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Love to hear from you in the comments, 5-star reviews, subscribe, like, anything you can do to help us out. We greatly appreciate it. And if you are hanging out in the premiere, it's going to be New Year here in about an hour, but we greatly appreciate you hanging out, taking time out of your day, night, evening, whenever you're hanging with us. We are more than gracious and just love it. So, as stated at the top of the show, we're going to talk more about some free agents you probably forgot that the Twins had signed. And coming up November 17th, 2011, and it's actually more than just Mr. Effectively Wild, but also an outfielder who, if I'm not mistaken, was a pretty good prospect a few years beforehand. Let's see. Played in the 2008 Futures game and the 2010 Futures game on the World team. Right-handed hitter, right-handed thrower, debuted with the Tigers in 2009. Any guesses?
I'm trying to think. It's very interesting to me that somebody was on the Futures team. It's interesting enough when they go 2 years in a row, but to skip a year, that's fascinating. I don't know who this is.
Wilkin Ramirez. And so I'm actually friends with him on Facebook, and he's doing a lot of stuff with a church down in his native Dominican Republic, which is cool. Just turned 39 here just before Halloween, so still a relatively young guy. But his last game in the major leagues was August 29th, 2013. And my favorite Wilkin Ramirez story is that back in this time, 2013, is kind of when MLB was really figuring out how bad concussions were and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
he had a concussion where I think he was playing left field and he ran into someone playing third base or whatever it was. And Rhett Bollinger told me this story because it was, if I'm not mistaken, in Detroit. And so anyway, they're administering the initial baseline test to him on the field. And they're like, okay, Wilkin, what day is it today? And he's like, I don't know days. And they're like, no, like, just what day of the week? I don't know the days. Like, he insisted he doesn't know the days. And like in that moment, I was like, oh, this guy who's been such a highly tuned, great athlete has, he's never had to learn all this stuff. But I think the reality was he was big time concussed at that point and couldn't remember the days. So either way, that was just a story that sticks with me from that season. Obviously, 2013, a year that I covered all 81 games at home that year, and just a dreadful, dreadful season. Wilkin got into 35 games and hit 272, 302, 370, played a little all over. And that was a wrap for his big league career. Now, signing on that same day, and I'm talking about Mr. Effectively Wild. I'm going to do a little demonstration on the screen here and see if this There's a picture of him doing this with his titanium necklace. Do you remember anything like this?
Yeah, it does look familiar to me.
For those wondering, I have a humility chain on, the Royce Lewis chains that his mom makes. Shout out Cindy Lewis. And I have it in my mouth. And now if you pretend I'm getting ready to pitch, that is what Samuel DeDuno was known for.
Dude, I remember Samuel DeDuno.
In 2013 and 2014. Samuel DeDuno in 2013 was a 1.7 baseball reference WAR pitcher, 3.83 ERA, 4.04 FIP, 5.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.4 walks. Didn't give up any home runs. This was one of the guys, like, with some of the nastiest raw stuff that I can remember. And I'm pretty sure he just had no idea where he was putting it, because honestly, with that kind of stuff, you'd expect, I mean, again, in parts of 3 seasons with the Twins, he was worth 3.1 baseball reference WAR, 63 appearances, 41 starts. So it wasn't like he was completely without value, but 4.59 FIP, 1.44 WHIP, 4.4 walks per 9, 6.4 strikeouts per 9. That's ugly. Like that, even back then when 7 strikeouts was good, he was below that and walking the whole ballpark too. I don't know. I think in a different era, a different time with different coaching from the Twins, this guy would have been pretty dang good.
He did. And I think maybe what was frustrating to the Twins, but maybe any of his teams, he put up some pretty good AAA numbers. He had a 3.40 ERA in AAA in 201 innings, and in AA, 3.96. Not so bad. So it looks like a guy just on the surface who's improving as he's going up the ladder. And he did get a bunch of opportunity. He had 6 major league seasons, like you said, 11 seasons in the minors, 6 seasons in AAA. That's a lot of. They don't ride the bus in AAA. At least I don't think they did even in those days. They still took the airplane. But like you said, sometimes guys just cannot command it. They have the natural ability, but it's something that's hard to harness. So he did have a long career, just not particularly long in the majors. And then, like you said, with the Twins, we didn't. That was a guy that I think some people maybe forgotten about.
Yeah, and the teams from that era are largely forgettable. I mean, 2013, the first game that I covered that year, the home opener, was Vance Worley making an opening day start.
So, I remember Vance Worley. Absolutely.
Did you know that when he signs autographs, if it's Twin stuff, he will cross out the Twins logo? That's how bitter he is about his time with the Twins.
Wow. That's not so good. I'm glad they fixed whatever ailed him, and it's good. It's a good trade having Falvey, I think, rather than
yeah, no question about it. Well, you know what? The next few bits here are going to be a little bit meaty, so we'll take our first break, and then when we come back, we're just going to dive into it because we got a lot of fun names that I'm pretty sure you have forgotten about. Hence, this being the 10th edition of this series. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Because that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year or in the new year. We're coming up on some resolutions, but Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using all of the app's premium features. So if it's a streaming service, if you're paying for music, it's to find things that you didn't even know you were still doing. You got that radio out in the car, all that fun stuff. If you're still paying for it and you don't want to be, Rocket Money will find them and they'll help cancel them for you. And they'll also help you just renegotiate cheaper rates too. Highly, highly recommended. For me, though, that subscription tracker was huge. Plus, with their goals feature, I was able to automatically set aside money for my future No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So we're coming up on a month later, December 14th. And in fact, the next two bullet points are 5, technically 6 players signed in the span of 2 days, 5 minor leaguers, and then Josh Willingham joining the Twins for the 2012 season. But we're not going to focus on Josh Willingham. Everybody remembers that they signed Josh Willingham. But some of these other guys were kind of fun. And we'll start with, thank you, Rocco, for chiming in. I don't know if people could hear that, but
I could, so I'm sure they could.
Making his voice heard because my daughter's outside waving at me outside the window, and it's a whole heap of fun over here. But
kids, we're on the air.
Yeah, right. The first of that bunch is a former number 9 pick who, when I wrote this list, was still alive and has since passed. I think you might be able to guess who that is.
It's not coming to me.
Sean Burrows.
Oh, yeah.
Was a Twin in 2012 for 10 games, 18 plate appearances, went 2 for 17, and that was a wrap for his big league career. Had lots of pressure on him as Jeff Burrows' son. Jeff Burrows, a player who was outfielder with we got Washington, Atlanta, Oakland, Seattle, and Toronto there for a bit too. Former big leaguer, won the MVP in his age 23 season back in 74. And then rest of his career, a few good years here and there. But having a name that's recognizable like that is tough for a guy like Sean Burrows, and he just could never figure it out. Had a lot of off the field issues. I know for a time there he was actually homeless. And I think that might have actually been when he was in between big league stints, because in 2006 he played for the Devil Rays, and then in 2011 he played for the Diamondbacks. I think in between those stints is when he hit some of his toughest times. But in the last May, he, I believe, collapsed and passed away at a tournament for his son. And so 43 years old, obviously gone far too soon, Mr. Sean Burrows. And I don't know, I bet I remember that he was a Twin, but I bet most people don't, including maybe you, Dave.
I didn't remember that. I remember Deduno, but I don't remember Burrows. It's a sad ending. It's easy for people to kind of fall through the cracks and lose their way. And like you said, when you have just the expectations of, maybe being as good as your major league dad, and it doesn't go the way you want it to, that's it's very easy to contribute to a downward spiral. And it's a sad I remember his demise being just really sad because it happened basically in front of his family at a baseball game. Just about as sad as you can get.
Well, and their story, a pretty well-known story of Ken Griffey Jr. actually unable to handle the pressure. And I think he swallowed a bunch of pills and tried to, we don't need to say the word, but he was saved. And I believe that's a story from like late high school years. And the pressure on guys like this is immense, and it's already immense no matter who your father is. Now you add into the fact that, especially for Ken Griffey Jr., his dad was a Hall of Very Good type player. That's tough. Barry Bonds has a similar type of pressure for coming up behind Bobby Bonds, who's another very, very good
I wouldn't
player.
have wanted to grow up as Bobby Bonds' son based on things.
No.
I know. And you just never know. And we're talking about semi-famous people, but, professionally speaking in the baseball circles, Jeff Burrows, really pretty famous. Yeah. Maybe anymore, not so much to the public, but we never know what's going on inside somebody's head, inside their mind, and inside their soul. And it's difficult for us to see it when we don't really even realize it until the end, until it's too late to do anything about it or feel like we could. And it's just
and there's layers to it of growing up with your dad on the road all the time, or your dad being a grade and having that pressure on you, or any number of external factors that can't even be considered. So let's move on to quite a bit less of a tragic figure. PJ Walters. Do you remember PJ Walters?
Yeah, I remember PJ Walters.
So,
definitely.
Big old righty, Southern boy from South Alabama. I feel like
and that's really south. When you're talking about South Alabama, you can't get much further south.
Home of the Senior Bowl, Mobile, Alabama. And speaking of Alabama, that's where Josh Willingham also came out of, because he was a big Crimson Tide fan. In fact, one of my favorite Willingham stories is that, and this was again relayed to me by Rhett Bollinger, was Willingham had a heart of gold. He didn't love the media, didn't like talking to people. He was a really good dude. Very, very good dude. Christian guy. Probably like Duck Dynasty, like a little bit, maybe, real simple, chill, whatever. And he, to do right by the clubhouse guy, Wayne Hadaway, who we knew as Big Fella. And if you look him up, once you stop laughing, I'll explain to you that
I remember Wayne Hadaway. He looked like an old grandpa, kind of.
Like if Yosemite Sam died and nobody told him, that's kind of what I think what he looked like. Little push broom mustache on a guy about 145 pounds, soaking wet. And by the end, he had cataracts and whatever. But Willingham wanted to do something nice for him, and so he brought him to a Crimson Tide game. And by like the second quarter, he's like, "Hey, can't see the field, biggin." And like Josh Willingham said, "Never again." Like, I'm glad I got to do a nice thing for him. He got all dolled up in his like cowboy outfit, because he was known for when he traveled on the road with the Twins, because Gardy took care of him, because Gardy understood the deal. He'd see him in the hotel lobby in his pearl snaps and his cowboy hat and boots and all that stuff. But it was funny just to hear him say, like, I did something nice for him and I'm glad I did, but my goodness, I am never bringing a man that old to a football game ever again. And so Willingham signed the next day. This was the era of the Twins and reclamation projects. And in fact, let's see, about a month after that, we'll have one that people will definitely have heard of, but maybe not remember the Twins signed. There was a catcher, an Astros prospect catcher who flamed out there. And I thought, you know what? Send him a AAA and we'll see what happens. J.R. Tolles. Do you remember J.R.
I love J.R. Tolles. I was a big bandwagon J.R. Tolles guy.
Yep. And
I thought the Twins could fix him.
We can fix him. Oh, he had the wrong era of Twins, because the we can fix him Twins are now rather than back then. Tolles actually spent the whole year at Rochester, had a 595 OPS, and kicked around a couple more years in AAA with St. Louis, the Dodgers, Rangers, and then 1 year in Bridgeport. Bridgeport, not exactly the what's the city in the Atlantic League that everybody goes to? Where
the one in New Jersey?
Yeah, the one where Lou Ford, Long Island. No, well, anyway, I know that there's. What's that?
Long Island Ducks.
I mean, that's one of them. But anyway, went through Bridgeport, had a nice year, but at that point, the luster was gone and he was finished. But I thought, you know what? J.R. Tolles, 28. The 2012 Twins were still trying to figure out who was going to be the next catcher behind Joe Mauer. Mauer caught for 2013, and then that was it. And it just wasn't to be with J.R. Tolles. But I thought for sure J.R. Tolles had a chance to be something for them. And he was in the 2007 Futures game. And before 2008 was the number 53 prospect on Baseball America, not to be outdone, number 54 at Baseball Prospectus, which I'm sure that's right in the thick of the Kevin Goldstein era, if I'm not mistaken, or probably the early part of it.
Right. Tolles, a dude, 282, 380 slash, so he could draw a walk. He could hit for a little power. He even ran. I mean, he wasn't successful running, really, but stole 50 or 60 bases in the minors. And then the majors, you get to that point, and it's just absolutely the pressure or whatever. It's not that he had like anything but himself to live up to, but he couldn't do that. And it's just, not every prospect is gonna make it. And it's just, but it's, when you're talking about a top 50, 60 prospect and he just doesn't hack it. It's disappointing in its own right.
So also signed on that day, Aaron Thompson. And if you don't remember him, lefty, kind of a hippy dippy guy. He would ride his, it's like a scooter he would ride to games that he was known for. And then his, he had an interview with Brian Murphy of the Pioneer Press where he says, "I'm just a monkey with a ball of yarn. I'm throwing it to a monkey with a stick." I keep trying to load it and the paywall keeps kicking in, which is certainly probably my fault. "I'm throwing it to a monkey with a stick and that's fine." So he's like, "I'm a monkey with a ball of yarn, throwing it to a monkey with a stick and that's fine." That was kind of the mentality he had, real chill, real cool. And, he had a nice little run in 2015 to start the year. And I think as the story goes, and I don't know that he is any sort of like begrudging of this, but Paul Molitor worked him hard through May. In fact, I think the common sentiment is that Molitor worked him too hard, and that just kind of ended his efficiency or his efficacy. Through June 4th, he had a 3.28 ERA, 14 strikeouts, 7 walks, and 24 2/3 innings, 591 OPS against. So perfectly solid for a second lefty out of the bullpen. Over the final 1 month he was with the team, from June 5th to July 5th, 7 2/3 innings, 9 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, 10.57 ERA, 945 OPS against. He got, I don't know if he was DFA'd or if he was just optioned. I can find that out. But that was kind of it for him. Cool dude to be around. He was a lot of fun to talk to. And he was also, it looks like he went to the minors. He was also part of a vaunted 2005 Florida Marlins draft class. He was traded for Nick Johnson, by the way, the probably more known for potential first baseman of the Yankees, who had a decent enough career, but was never really what they had hoped for. But in 2005,
too many injuries.
Right. In 2005, the Marlins had 5 picks in the first round and the supplemental round. And a good friend of mine, Tom Schreier, who is the owner of Zone Coverage, where I've written, and this show gets posted there, had a story where he was interviewing Aaron Thompson. Thompson was the second of those 5 picks. I'm going to read some names. It's not exactly remembering some guys, but it's definitely not that either. First one was Chris Volstead. Now, obviously, I think I remember him for being like 7 feet tall. Crazy.
He was.
130 big league games, 2.0 Fangraphs or Baseball Reference WAR. So, not the best career. Justin Upton, Alex Gordon, Jeff Clement, Ryan Zimmerman, Ryan Braun. Braun came up in our most recent episode. Troy Tulowitzki, also on the Hall of Fame ballot this year. Mike Pelfrey, still a player playing from that draft. Mr. Andrew McCutchen, who I believe just re-signed with the Pirates.
He did. So, he just re-upped.
Yeah. So Chris Volstead, Aaron Thompson was the second one. So Volstead was 16th. Thompson was 22nd. Jacob Marceau was 29th. That was via the Yankees. I think that would have maybe been for the Carl Pavano signing, probably compensation. Pick 34, Ryan Tucker, who pitched 11 big league games, minus 1.3 Baseball Reference WAR. And then picked with pick number 44, 1 pick ahead of Jed Lowry, Sean West, who pitched in a handful of games too. If you're wondering too, the Twins in this first round took Matt Garza, 25th overall, and 39th overall with a compensation pick, Mr. Hank Sanchez, who I believe has since passed away. Yeah, 2017 he passed away. I think he had a brain tumor or something like that. But that's Aaron Thompson's origin story. And yeah, Tom Schreier was trying to write this big 5-piece article, and he was always saying, "Got to finish it, got to finish it, got to finish it." And it reminded me of the old, and this is a very esoteric reference, but there was a Twitter user called Viva Albertos.
I remember Viva Albertos, yeah.
trying to finish the Penny Pitch FX article, working on the Penny Pitch FX article for Brad Penny. He's like, this is easy, man. This is really hard, man. And then like that was it. And Dane Perry used that on Not Graphs as like I don't know if it was his creed or what, but
a phrase that pays.
Yeah, the Penny Pitch FX article was legendary back in like this time, 2012 or so. And but anyway, that is the pitcher. And then one more guy, Stephen Pierce. You remember him as a righty masher on the Red Sox when they won their World Series. Not the first time around, but much later, not the 2004 team, but actually carved out parts of 13 seasons in the big leagues, 766 games, none of them with the Twins. And in fact, in 2013, he played for the Orioles. He did spend some time in the big leagues in 2012, not a great season, but in 2013 had a nice year, had a 157 OPS plus in 2014 with Baltimore. Just a tremendous year. 5.8 WAR, more than half of his career WAR coming that year. So great trade Falvey back before Falvey was in charge. But I bet a lot of people didn't realize that, Steve, I think he was going by Steven at that time, Pierce, had been in the Twins system there for a minute back in the spring of 2012.
But only a minute.
Yeah.
Only 60 seconds. I was about to say 30 seconds. I was about to rewrite what a minute is.
So do you know who the
Pierce,
next one
is? He's a legendary fella, for sure.
Yeah. We're moving kind of quickly here because I'm trying to get out of here and go make some steaks for New Year's. But Mr. Guitar Hero signed with the Twins on January 18th, 2012. Do you know that reference?
Yeah, Joel Zumaya.
Joel Zumaya. And funny enough, I was friends with him on Facebook for a while. He would just hop on Facebook Live and smoke weed and just listen to music and vibe. But he'd be on like Facebook Live just doing it and like bopping to the music. And I'm like, I don't need to watch this.
Well, you know what? It's as you know, as a content creator, sometimes it's hard to create content. And if sitting in a chair, doing some doobs, listening to the vibes, gets it done, then I think God bless him. But I don't know that I would have tuned in either.
Well, and his Twins career unceremoniously ended just a couple months later. Elbow blew up on a pitch in, I think, live batting practice. And that was that. There was like a bulletin coming out of Fort Myers. Joel Zumaya hurt yet again. And, you know, when the Twins were so bad in 2011, 2012, you're grasping at anything to be cool or interesting. Joel Zumaya was a chance for the Twins to, you know, find some help in the back end of that bullpen now that Joe Nathan was gone at that time. And boy, I tell you, trying to find lightning in a bottle. Well, they couldn't keep the lightning in that bottle. And that was that.
Just rely on having Joe Mauer. That's all.
Yeah. Last up on this one, and I say not least, but maybe least, this guy pitched with the Tigers first, Mariners second. I'm trying to find the transactions here. He was traded for Jared Washburn in 2009. He spent the whole year with the Twins in 2012, not in the big leagues. Soft tossing lefty, 6'4", 220. He had a 1-5 record with the Red Wings that year. 4-1 at AA New Britain though. So went down to AA at age 26 after pitching in the big leagues and carved it up with 4.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. This is the Terry Ryan special. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about, Mr. Mustard here?
It's not coming to me. Who is it?
Luke French.
Oh, Luke French.
Luke French won 4 games between Detroit and Seattle in 2009, age 23. Never struck anybody out. Gave up a bunch of homers. And as I recall, was a soft tossing lefty. And traded for Jared Washburn, who in his own way was a pretty solid starting pitcher in his day. The only game I ever went to at Safeco, Washburn threw like a 4-hit shutout against the Angels, and Russell Branyan hit like one of the longest home runs I've ever seen on a 3-0 pitch opposite field. Now, go ahead and go check that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll own it. But that's how I remember it that day. Was he just hit the ever-loving crap out of a ball over the bullpen and left. which is hard to do as a left-handed hitter at Safeco, especially back in those days. And so,
Wisconsin native, Jared Washburn.
Yeah, Mr. Muscles. And so not a lot of Luke French anecdotes, but he was traded for Jared Washburn, who I think the Twins a few different times were interested in maybe acquiring. Really would have fit the mold for the Terry Ryan Twins in the late aughts when he was striking out 5 batters per 9 and giving up whips of like 135, like the quintessential number 5 starter.
Yeah, Luke got his chance for a couple years, and then they didn't let him back in. So it's like 2009, 2010, and then you're done, buddy. No more opportunities.
Well, and on that note, this episode is done too. We hope you're enjoying this little series that we're doing. And if you're not, call your legislators and tell them the Twins need to sign somebody so we can talk about real moves. I think I just made the dog bark by yelling. So we can talk about real moves that are happening rather than this stuff that happened 15 years ago. So again, thank you for hanging out with us. He's Dave Brown. I'm Brandon Warren. We're signing off for a little bit, saying Happy New Year, and we'll see ya
tomorrow night. Hey, we'll see you next year.
Yeah, see you next year. Goodbye.